Hey there everyone, Videogame Cabinet here doing a review on Final Fantasy III for the Famicom. That of course is not to be confused with Final Fantasy VI on the Super Nintendo that was released here originally as 3, but it was really 6 in Japan. I'm talking about the 3 that we never got on the Famicom, never came to the NES here. I actually beat this though on a multi-cart with a fan translation on the NES, so I got the authentic experience, but with a fan translation. And yeah, so been wanting to play this game for about 25 years. This and Final Fantasy II I beat earlier this year. Yeah, so anyway, as for my review, Final Fantasy III is a very old school JRPG about a group of 4 orphans that are destined for greatness and embark on a journey to save the world's crystals and bring balance back to the dark and light. It's a little generic even for an old school RPG. The main characters don't really talk much. The leader does barely a little bit. They don't have really any development at all or backstory much. They come from some village named and that's about it. And the many NPCs, not playable characters, don't really have much development either. This is an 8-bit JRPG after all, so I didn't expect too much in the way of deep narrative. But Final Fantasy II on the Famicom, that came out about a year and a half earlier, that one was still a little bit stronger in this department, in my opinion. But despite that, I still loved exploring the globe of Final Fantasy III and leveling up my characters. This entry introduces the glorious job system that was later refined in Final Fantasy V, as well as Final Fantasy Tactics. You level up your character's base stats conventionally by grinding and fighting enemies. And then you can also pick certain jobs to assign them and switch between those that have specific strengths and attributes and abilities. And the more that you use a certain job, the more that you can switch to that one without costing you too many points. I have a feeling, whether it's true or not, the developers were trying to combine some of the ideas of Final Fantasy II's usage and specialization system with traditional RPG elements, like, conventional leveling up and grinding. And it works great. This is definitely a highlight of the game. There are a lot of other quality of life improvements from the previous entry, such as no more ineffective attacks. When you all highlight an enemy and then one party member kills them and then the next guy hits them, it'll just hit the next enemy, unlike Final Fantasy 1 and 2. And there's revive pawns in most towns that bring characters back to life for free. You can also revert learned magic spells back into items so that you don't have to worry too much about not having enough room in your magic arsenal. Summon spells also make their series debut here, and the various side quests to get some of them are actually a lot of fun too. This game had a good dose of side quests, optional side quests to do around the main quests. There are still some frustrating sections, just like Final Fantasy II had. But also like Final Fantasy II, there are ways of getting around them once you learn the nuances of the gameplay. The job system here gives so much freedom to customize your characters that you should be able to get out of any sticky spot with enough grinding and experimentation between the jobs. The ancient ruins and the Dark World sections were particularly painful, but I still think the Mysidia Tower in Final Fantasy II was a bit harder. The soundtrack in Final Fantasy III. As you can expect from the series, this game does have some very nice music. My one big gripe, though, about the soundtrack is that my two favorite tracks, Maiden of Water and Boundless Ocean, were only played for a short bit, around a third of the way through the game, and never heard again. I really wanted to hear them more throughout the whole playthrough, and Boundless Ocean should have been the main overworld theme throughout. There's a couple of overworld themes that they play depending on when you're walking or flying, but Boundless Ocean is just in there for a little bit, and then it's gone. There was other good music in the last few dungeons, though, so especially like the last 3 dungeons. So the soundtrack does end things off on a high note. Anyway, so I think I'm going to give Final Fantasy III an 8.5. That is the same score that I gave Final Fantasy II right here earlier this year. I know that a lot of people crap on Final Fantasy II, but I actually really liked it a lot. As far as like comparing the two of them, it's tough for me to say which one's better out of these two. Final Fantasy III has the more refined gameplay. It has the innovative job system. But Final Fantasy II does have a slightly better narrative. And, this is an 8-bit RPG as well. So the narrative in either of these games doesn't get to the level of like the 16 or 32-bit entries. But this narrative still is better. And the soundtrack, I preferred in Final Fantasy II. The Overworld theme that you heard throughout the whole game was just outstanding. And, if they had just played those other 2 songs that I mentioned, Maiden of Water and Boundless Ocean, if those had been more main themes throughout the game, this soundtrack probably would have equaled Final Fantasy II's. So it's tough for me to say, and I didn't hate the gameplay in Final Fantasy II. Once you learn the nuances of how to use the swap spell and the attack canceling, you could grind pretty quickly, just like about the same as a regular old school RPG, and have fun and get overpowered early, and it was really good. But anyway, I don't want to get too off topic on 2. 3 is a very good game if you're in the mood for an old school, pretty grind heavy JRPG. So yeah, that's my review. 8.5 for Final Fantasy III on the Famicom. Just a quick little bonus. Now discussing more about the whole series. I guess now that I've completed 3 after all this time, that means I've beaten 1 through 10 in my lifetime. Final Fantasy 1 I beat, I think, in 2019. Right now it's 2023. But in 2019, about 4 years ago, I beat this on the NES Classic Mini with save states. So maybe I'll have to run through it again on an authentic cartridge. But this one I really enjoyed. I think I rated it about a 9 or so. It was really good as a first entry. Let me see. And then back in high school, or back in grade school, I got introduced to this series with Final Fantasy VII. This is an absolute 10 out of 10. This and 6 are tied as my favorite in the series. After beating 7 in high school, I did run through part 4, which was released as 2 here on the Super Nintendo. This was really good. This one I have to replay again at some point. I think I gave this a 9 back in high school, but I don't know, maybe it's a 9.5. They really did a lot with character development and narrative in this one. Now I see over the original trilogy on the NES Famicom. This one took a lot of big steps with narrative. 5, I did play in high school when it was re-released on the PS1 Final Fantasy Anthology. I thought this was fantastic. I remember giving it a 9.5 for just the amazing job system. I'll have to go back and play this again to see how just how well refined it was versus the one in 3. And then, yeah, Final Fantasy VI. I believe I beat this back in high school at least a couple of times. This one and 7 are tied for the absolute pinnacle in the series. Yeah, 7 we talked about. 8, I remember looking very much forward to this game, and I remember having mixed feelings about it. The graphics, the music are just like the most beautiful on the PS1, and there's some things that I really loved a lot about it. I love the focus on the theme of love, and some of the characters I liked a lot. The story, I remember dragging a bit, certain story beats not hitting home with me, not being as amazing as maybe I was hoping for. This one I'd really have to go back and play again. I know this is a controversial title in the series with fans, but this one's due for a replay and a full review now, 20 years, or almost 25 years after I originally played it. 9, I think I played this in college. I remember liking it, a good amount, but I don't remember it too well. This is another one that I have to replay at some point. It's been about 20 years since I've played 9. And Final Fantasy X, I remember absolutely loving this one. This one felt like it was taking the theme of love like 8 did, and some of the mature themes with the tall characters, and doing it with a really entertaining story. I remember giving this one a 10 out of 10, but, this one could use another replay. I never played Final Fantasy X-2. I think I rented it for a day, but I don't remember much about it. Didn't really get very far. 11 was online, so I'm never going to play that one. 12, I remember renting. I picked it up recently for a few bucks. The tiny few hours that I put into this, I remember not liking it too much, but I didn't really give it much of a chance. The 13 trilogy, I recently picked these up for cheap. 13, I remember playing a little bit of, like 5 or 10 hours and not really liking it so much, but I'd like to give it a full chance and a full review at some point soon anyway. And then 13.2 and 13.3, Lightning Returns, I haven't even played 5 seconds of these. 15, haven't played this at all. I got it for $1 a few years ago. 14 is online, so haven't played that. 16, I actually got as a gift from a friend when it came out about a month or two ago. I will play this at some point. I hear great things about it. And the 7 remake, I love this. Just this entry, I would give a 10. And I look forward to the second and third installments that are coming out soon. And I think that's it. I also have Final Fantasy Tactics around here. I remember that was really good. The plot was a little bit hard for me to follow, but I loved the job system in that one, and the music was outstanding. The music is outstanding in most of these games, if not all of them. But, yeah, and I recently picked up the Final Fantasy collection that has, the first 6 games. Yeah, so that's my Final Fantasy collection right there. That's pretty much all of them as far as I can see. Maybe I'm missing a couple that are hanging in the collection somewhere. But anyway, so there you go. Those are my thoughts on Final Fantasy today. Maybe I'll try to get to playing 16 soon. I know this is the hot game on everyone's backlog right now. All right, that's it. Have a nice day.